Hello, my name is Teacher Stephanie. What's your name? My referral code is in the down bar should you be interested in signing up for VIPKID. And if you need any help, you can email me. But I wanted to review the Mock 2 for the intermediate level about Earth, our home, and pollution. I just completed the Mock 2, so I thought since it's still fresh in my mind and I still remember all of the things the Mock 2 instructor told me, I would go over it with you now. So to start the Mock 2, it has the title page that talks about like introduction, what you're going to be learning about Earth, our planet, pollution. In my Mock 1, the instructor made sure to tell me that you don't have to talk about each of the headings for each slide, but you should at least introduce the unit. So that's what I did here. Then I talked about my reward system. So I went on Google and I found a gumball machine that I printed, and I didn't have color ink, so I colored it, and then each time the student got a question right, I put a gumball on the gumball machine, and it was just these little stickers that I had in my child's things. So you don't have to use the reward system. In this reward system, there's like a squirrel and some cut down stumps. I don't understand most of the VIPKID reward systems, so I chose my own there, and she seemed to really like it. So for the warm-up, I had watched some other YouTube videos, and there's a guy on here that said his instructor was thrilled with how he did the warm-up. It's kind of like a poem, and it's about the Earth. So he put on a pair of glasses, and then he had an actual globe to show, but I just had a picture that I put on a stick. And so he kind of rapped like, I am Earth, you're in my hand. He rapped the poem. At the end of this activity, my instructor gave me some feedback at the halfway mark, and she said that she would have preferred to have seen for me to gauge the child's reading ability through this poem, like perhaps the child reads it and then I could have done the fun part. But she said I made up for it with the slides that are coming, so that was good. So the next slide talks about the environment. There are 3 different pictures, and you're supposed to ask the child, what do you see? It's intermediate, so you don't have to speak slow to the child like they are 5 and this is their first encounter, so you're not going to say like, what do you see? You know, you talk to them with normal rate of speech, and you'll do some hand symbols if you wanted to, but they do want to see the TPR, the total TBR, I don't know. They want to see your body moving throughout, so you kind of come alive for the child and the camera. Also, while I'm thinking about it, the instructor said at my halfway mark when we talked that she said that in the beginning I did a really good job keeping eye contact, looking directly into the camera, but then it kind of fizzled out. So for the second half, I really was looking at the camera the whole time. Not weird like that, but it's challenging to try to look at the camera while also looking at is the student saying what she's supposed to say? I need to click the next slide. I need to get my reward system going. Anyways, so the environment. So I asked the child to explain what she saw. She used complete sentences. If they're not using complete sentences, that's something you want to kind of redirect. So if she says, green, you might want to say, I see the green jungle. Good job. That's something they want to see. And then, of course, I also explained what an environment is. Then I brought out my prompt, Mr. George. I told them that I told the instructor that this is my friend George, and he lives in an environment. What type of environment do you think he lives in? She really liked that we had a prompt that was engaging for the student, that would be engaging at 8 or 9 years old. And in this intermediate level, so she was able to tell me the type of things that George would have in his environment. The next slide, we talked about trash. So I asked her, what do you see? Most of the first part of the Mock 2 was asking the child to describe what do they see or to read to me. So after the child described that they saw trash, then I described the definition of trash, and it's on the slide. Trash is something that is not useful, it's time to throw it away kind of thing. And then I had some trash that was handy. So it said, where should we throw our trash? And then to kind of extend the learning, I asked them, why would that be important? And then I kind of put the trash on my friend George's hand. I have seen some examples where they put the trash on the prop's head. That seemed a little bit intense for me, so I tried the hand instead. So she seemed to like that. She told me where the trash should go, why it should go there, and how she can help her environment to make sure it gets there. Another, what do you see? It was about harm. There was a picture of a seal or a sea lion. We weren't really sure, so we just kind of went with what the student said. It's a sea creature. And I described harm, and we talked about, let's see, what can harm the environment? What can you do to help save the environment, kind of thing. Lots of talking. So even though this is an intermediate level, and I have taught kindergarten through 3rd grade, puppets are always essential. No matter how old you are, you always will love a puppet. So in this next part, it's kind of like role playing. So I was supposed to ask the student a question through a speech bubble that's already provided for me, and the student was supposed to read their speech bubble to me. But instead, to make it a little more entertaining, I used my puppet, the dragon. So I said, put it on the correct hand here, I said, what can harm the environment? And this is the puppet listening. And they were supposed to say, throwing trash into our environment can harm Earth. And then I asked, what else can harm Earth? She did have some good ideas, but that was kind of, it's such a vague question that the prompt provided that I made sure that I previewed all these slides and was prepared in having an idea of something that actually could also harm the environment besides not throwing trash away, because sometimes being on the spot with an adult and a mock instruction or instructor situation can leave you a little rattled, and it's not like when you're in a traditional classroom. So I made sure to point out that it can, if we cut down too many trees, that's not good for our environment. And then the student responded about, but we need paper. So then we did talk quickly about how we can do things online now to save paper. And the instructor smiled and seemed to like that. My instructor was fabulous, by the way, both times, but particularly this mock 2. She only had nice things to say. I really appreciated her. Her name was Jackie. She was amazing. So the next 4 slides are in-depth reading, lots of reading for the child. So in the notes at the bottom of the slide, it says that the teacher and the student should read these slides together. And I've done a ton of research about these. I watched a ton of YouTube videos just like you are. And I decided based off of my feedback from Mock 1 that I wanted to see what the child can do. In my Mock 1, the teacher said that oftentimes this is the child's one opportunity for the entire week to speak English to somebody else that speaks English, and they want as much opportunity as possible to read and to speak and to talk to you. So I decided to see what the student could do, and then if the student needed more assistance from me with reading, then I would be happy to help. So in these big reading passages, a lot of the time with both Mock 1 and Mock 2, the instructor read straight through, just kept reading run-on sentences for the whole paragraph. So after she was done, I encouraged her by saying, "Great job, I really like the way you were reading. What's this?" And I underlined the period under the end of the first sentence, at the end of the first sentence. And she said, "That means stop." And I said, "Yes, a period means we stop. We take a pause before we read our next sentence. Good job. Can you read for me again?" Just like that, basically. A little slower, but that's what I said basically. And she read the whole thing again, and after the little, it's like 4 sentences or so, and when we had our halfway chat about how things were going, she said she really appreciated how I stopped at the halfway mark, so that, not the halfway mark, she appreciated that I went back and adjusted the period situation so that the child knew that she did a great job reading, but we have to stop at the periods to kind of make those connections in our brains for the sentence. So then it asked some questions about each of these pictures. And so I did see this in somebody else's example, and I kind of made my own version. I asked the child a couple slides down after all of the reading. There are 4 pictures. So they look like this, for example. And I did provide this on a prop like this, but You don't have to. I did because I liked it. I wanted to physically show the child what she was saying. So the goal is to get these students in the intermediate level to speak as complete of sentences as they possibly can. So when I asked this child about this slide, I said, which picture happened first? And she drew a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and that was it. So that was perfect. That was exactly what I wanted her to do, because now I'm going to encourage her and correct her in a kind way that we use complete sentences. So I said, you said this picture happened first. Can you tell me what happened first? And then the student described what happened first, and I was able to get the student to retell me what happened in the story for each of those 4 pictures. And that's something that she commented on later about how much she appreciated that I was able to kind of redirect, but certainly in a positive way. I also wanted to point out, I forgot to mention this earlier, my reward system. She said at the end that I don't know how many gumballs I had, but I had a lot and I really liked it. I do a reward, gumball, whatever, as I'm clicking for the next slide. So as I'm clicking, I'm saying, good job, click, and we're going to the next slide. So each time I did that. Also throughout each of the slides, as particularly the reading parts, they're quite lengthy. To encourage her, I would say, oh, great job, high five. She also liked a little bit later, I felt like the high fives were maybe getting old, so let's try something new. I used the fireworks, so it looks like this. And she really seemed to like that. So it's encouraging. I think that the students will like that too when I finally get in a real classroom on VIP Kids. So then we get to a bunch of questions that the student answers. Because she had been doing so much reading, and throughout the reading, I felt like it went really well with how the student was reading, but the student did mention a few times, wow, this is a lot of reading. So I wasn't sure if that was code for I shouldn't be reading this much, or what. I wasn't sure. So on the questions, there's 3 questions based on the stories or the story that they had read throughout the section before. I said, great reading. I'm going to read this question, okay? And so then I read the question and she responded, and then I asked her to read the next question. Something that the instructor said for the mock 2 was that she appreciated that I pointed with my pen to the question that I wanted her to read, or I used like an arrow. I drew an arrow to the statement I wanted her to read so she knew where to start, because sometimes we would get in a conversation or something like that, and I wanted to make sure that she knew where she was starting and not just reading everything I had just read, especially in the beginning slides where we talk about the definition that they want me to use is at the top, and I don't want her to read that again because I've already read it, you know? So this is something I also saw on the YouTube, and I made kind of my own version of it, and she really liked it a lot. We're talking about future tense. So I said that the future tense can mean going to. It's something you're going to do, like possibly tomorrow. And then there's a little sentence I had her read that was on the page, and then it asks for examples. So I told her that I am going to make pancakes for breakfast. And she really liked that. And then she told me that she is going to take a nap. So that was really funny. And then another gumball. So the next section, I told her was the most challenging part, and I think I should make a separate video just for this part, because she said that she actually wrote down that this went fantastic, and I felt like this area was my most challenging part whenever I was thinking about what am I going to do for this. It's the conjugation, and in the definition it says, show the conjugation on the simple future tense. Explain that the conjugation, the verb be with the subject, and add going plus infinitive verb form. You're not going to tell an 8-year-old all of that, okay? You're just not. So I went ahead and wrote it out for you so that you can see what the sentence looks like on the actual slide. There are 3 different sentences. One says am, is, and are. So to make it simple and to not use all of that crazy verbiage that it says at the bottom, I said something simple like, we're going to conjugate. When we conjugate, we use the word am, is, or are, and I underlined it on the computer screen. And then I said, it is followed by the phrase going to. And then I said, and finally, it has the verb. And then I said, I am going to clean the environment. Am going to clean is the conjugation. Can you try? And for whatever reason, the teacher said she thought it was amazing. She thought it was very articulate. She thought that the student in real life could be able to understand and not use all of that messy jargon that's on the bottom that even I was confused on. So I was very, very pleasantly surprised that she was so kind about that. So the next part, even though we only talked about the future, the next slide asked about the past and the present. So I do not know if these children are already familiar with these terms, but just in case, I made, one of these for each. So I have the future, the present, and the past. So I had them on little sticks, and we talked about each one briefly. Like we just talked, the future is something you're going to do, like something you're going to do tomorrow. And I reminded her, remember, you're going to take a nap, because that's what she had said. Yesterday, yesterday, or past, I mean. So in the past, like yesterday, I went for a walk in the park. Present tense is something today, like something you're doing right now. Like right now, you're in school with teacher Stephanie. So I asked her to read the sentence. There's about 4. I asked her to read the first one and then decide if it's the past, the present, or the future. So with each question, I kind of backed off as much of my wording as possible, because in the intermediate level it should be 70% of the time the child is speaking and 30% of the time the teacher is speaking. So I said, which is it? And I showed her all of my little pieces again and reviewed them like I just did for you. And then the next time I said, is it the past, the present, or the future? And then on the third one I said, past, present, future. And then by the 4th one, she didn't need my help at all, and she told me what she thought it was. So I thought that went really well. Something that was kind of tricky, I thought I needed another prompt. I didn't. I don't know what I've done with it now, but there it is. I thought I needed another prompt. The intermediate level really challenges me, as I am traditionally a kindergarten teacher in a brick and mortar classroom. I felt like we hadn't had a prompt in a while, even though we just did these stick things, but I felt like the next slide kind of needed a prompt. So basically the child is supposed to fill in the blank of a sentence with either the word are or is. So I made it on like a stick. That's all I had handy. And this one was quite tricky, actually. This was more tricky than the last one with the conjugation. So they're supposed to conjugate the verb to match the subject in each sentence. So the student initially got the first one wrong, and I said, let's think about this. But she was able to pull that slide up at the end and review it with me and show me what we could have done. So that was really helpful, but I don't know how to explain it now. The question, or number 1 says pollution and trash, and the child is supposed to say is or are going to harm the animals. So the correct answer was are going to harm the animals, because pollution and trash is they. So it would be like saying they are going to harm the animals. There, I did do it. That's what the instructor told me. I thought that was great. I did not know that. So she said she particularly liked this part. Again, this is another idea that I saw on YouTube that I kind of made my own. So I told her, wow, look at all of these vowels. I said the word vowel because it's important for the next slide. I said, look at all of these vowels. We have A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. Good job. Y says yeah, yeah. Can you say yeah? Yeah? And to be honest, on this slide, she didn't say anything to me about it at the end, but I felt like I was so excited that I made it this far, and I still had the appropriate amount of time that I think I was like, yeah, yeah. So she could have easily said that's not the sound. So it did sound like she made not the proper sound for the letter Y. So I did say yeah, yeah, again, to see if it was just my hearing or if she really did on purpose, not make the correct sound, to see how I would correct her as you would with a real student. So I told her that when Y is a consonant, it makes the Y sound. But when it's a vowel, it makes the E sound, like the letter E. It can spell words like happy or angry. She liked that. So then the next slide talks about, right away it asks, what are the 5 vowels? So I'd already shown them to her, so hopefully that reminded her. And if not, I could have whipped this puppy right back out, but she knew them all. And I said, good job, high five. And then the next slide talked about, or this slide talked about words that have a Y and how it's at the end and how we read that word, like silly, rainy, you try. And then she read the next word. Then it also had consonants, like if this is the sound yeah, it would say yes, you, yawn. And we actually both yawned at the same time. It was super cute. So so the next slide wanted them to blend words with the Y sounding like a vowel, so it would say E. So like the word happy. So right away she went right in and put a Y at the end of each of them, and she just read all of the words to me. So I was like, well, I guess she did that correctly. Happy. You know, I had her repeat it because she did it all right and she did a good job, and also we were running out of time. So being conscious of your time is very important, apparently. The next slide was matching. She did a really super terrific job. She like breezed right through these. It was words that we've already reviewed, like harm, environment, trash. She needed to define the word and then match it to its correct definition. She did a great job. We're almost to the end. It talked about 2 different pictures. One is a hot mess. It has a park with trash all over it, and the other one was a nice fancy park that she had talked about earlier. That was her environment when we talked about her environment. And you know, it asks which of these would you like to live in, and that kind of thing. So she did a good job explaining where she would like to live in and why and how she can make a difference. And then on the last slide it asks who can, like, think about the trash that you throw away. Who can it harm? And there's lots of questions on this one that you can engage the child with conversation, like, can any of your trash that you throw in the environment, can any of the trash you throw away harm the environment? What can you do to help the environment be a better place? And she did a good job. And about this time, my phone alarm went off to tell me that I was out of time. So she said she let me keep going because I needed to end it because it's now goodbye. And to be honest, with my Mach 1, I never made it to the end completely. So we were just kind of done when the timer was over. So, and to be frank, I really didn't practice how to end this besides like goodbye. So I just said, thank you so much, Jackie. You did a terrific job today. High five. I'll see you next time. And then she said bye, and that was it. So I wasn't 100% sure how to end it, but she said it was a good job, and she said that I went over by a minute, but it was okay. I guess they give you like a couple minutes of flexibility time in there when you're really with the students. So I think in general, the things that she had to say were super nice. Obviously, if I don't get picked for this position, then I will not be posting this video. But I thought the things she said were super nice, and I really appreciated them. And she really didn't have anything negative to say, so it will be interesting to see if I get the position or not, which will be interesting to see about the booking situation, because I know a lot of people on YouTube are talking about how challenging it is to get booked. So hopefully I'll be able to update you soon. Thank you so much. If you have any questions that I wasn't able to answer, I know I sped through it kind of quickly, so if you don't have, if you have a question I didn't get to answer, put it in the comments down below, and I will respond. Thank you so much. Bye.